Hey there, welcome to episode 82 of the FFS Talk audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording at just about 10:30 in the morning on June 19th, 2025. Happy Juneteenth. To be published today, of course. Episode 82, the title and topic of today's episode, Mysterious Violations. If you are not familiar with the FFS Talk audio program, it is designed to be a discussion someday about what works, what does not work, and what we might do about it. It is meant to be constructive debate of sorts, utilitarian conversation. So far it has been a monologue, a planting of seeds for future discussion perhaps, on various topics. Today's topic, of course, the mysterious violations that are probably becoming more and more common, but no less mysterious. What am I talking about? Well, first of all, if this is your first time visiting or listening to the FFS Talk audio program, I've sort of described it, but if you're curious, what does FFS Talk mean? What is that an abbreviation of? Well, if you don't know, you should hang out with more Irish people. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, a summary that I will read to you, and the links for today's episode. As it happens, the links for today's episode are merely the 4 shameless self-promotion links you may have heard before. The summary of today's episode goes something like this. The world revolves around corporate internet. Whether they are hosting your products to sell, reviews of products or services, your content, your thoughts, your dreams. Yet you must comply with their terms or face the dreaded violation email and worse. The links for today's episode, again, the shameless self-promotion links, you are under no obligation to spend any money. The first two, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, DANHUGO, no space, and Buy Me an Update, the weekly microcast published on Mondays, exclusively on buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo/posts. The profile page at Dan Hugo on buymeacoffee.com includes links to all of my audio programs, all of my projects, some affiliate links for my favorite coffee beans, and some other things, a little biographical information, and of course, the Buy Me an Update audio program. The Buy Me an Update provides a 5-minute or less quick rundown on the previous week's audio program episode topics and any news and announcements upcoming. Then we have the next two, Ko-fi.com, hyphen is next to the 0 on most keyboards, ko-fi.com/DanHugo, and the unscheduled, non-topic constrained coffee solo program, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo/post. I use both of these sites to engage with my millions and millions of listeners and consumers of my projects and whatnot. So check them out if you can. Again, no obligation to spend any money, but if you do, all proceeds through either of these channels, either of these platforms, will go towards coffee or coffee accessories. It's what makes this stuff work. Now on with the show. Let's get started so we can get finished. Unfortunately, we depend on them. The internets, if I can speak. My voice is already giving into the allergy season in Vegas. My apologies. The internets began as a sort of scrappy place with a lot of early content hosted on university computers in the tilde-adorned home directories. Mine was tilde D Hugo on somewhere, HMC Vax, I think. And fairly quickly on company websites, building their early web presence and the odd vanity domain when the registrations were slightly expensive for normal people. That's another story for another time, perhaps. I registered my first domain in March 1996, reallycool.com. There were already plenty, and among them a little website called Blogger, which enabled anyone. Now, I don't think they were registered in 1996. In fact, let's call an audible if Whois still works. Whois Blogger.com. Blogger.com is now owned by Google, but it was first registered in 1999. Not bad. June of 1999. June 22nd, in fact. So shortly after, really cool. What was I thinking? I should have registered Blogger.com. Blogger enabled anyone to write and publish their own web log, hence blog. Was this the first of its kind? I doubt it, but you have probably heard of Blogger, and there would be others before and after, enabling people to get around the tech part and jump right. Boy, if I could spell right correctly. Right with an R, but no W. Right into the creative part of this shiny new internet thing. So I don't have to know how to code. Although Blogger did enable you to fiddle with the templates of your Blogger publication, you really don't need to know much, just how to log in and maybe provide a credit card number sometimes, and away you go. Since it was the wild, wild west back then, the security, privacy, and community guidelines were all the subjects of daily consideration and consternation. All manner of holes were found, sometimes covered over, less often actually addressed in a useful and viable way to make the internet experience better for the people. Well, that's not totally true. It had to be safe for those companies hosting all this stuff and making money doing it. That's the real important thing. Gotta enable that. Profit. The learning process through this is always a sharp stick poking you somewhere. I honestly cannot recall the first time something I submitted to a third-party website was rejected for some violation of terms. It may have been MySpace, something really old school like that, but I doubt it. I was never really so active there on MySpace, and I also really wasn't publishing controversial content so much. And I had my own website if I really wanted to go outside the boundaries. Maybe Facebook? Was it like touching a hot pot handle or stepping on a Lego plastic block? Probably. Oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. I know one post on Facebook was rejected for violating community guidelines, which probably had changed a dozen times by then, around video content, which was a clip someone had captured here in Vegas during the pandemic lockdown. Somewhere in that time frame, on the Strip, where two women in a crowd, it was many people that were visiting one of the pretty much empty casinos, two women began a physical altercation that got a bit extreme, some real fighting. This may have been linked in a news article. I don't recall, but it was news. I know I found it in a news article, so I probably posted a link to the article, which somehow featured a video or something. I don't think that would have worked that way. I'm not really sure. I did find this via some news reporting here in Vegas, however, so I considered it a news item. Either way, it was taken down, and I found that troubling, since it was actual news. It was commentary on how the Strip was drawing in people who may not have hung out on the Strip so much, I guess. I know this marked the beginning of the end of my use of Facebook, though. I mean, it was a long time coming, but why bother? I remember also, more recently, a Nextdoor post. Nextdoor.com is a horrible website, which was a link to a local news article that was actually relevant to my specific neighborhood, which is the whole point of Nextdoor. It was removed for violating something. I have no idea what. It literally said your content has been taken down or removed for violation of something. I don't remember what it was. It was probably ridiculous. This did not make sense to me, but marked the end of my use of the awful Nextdoor platform. I actually closed my account there at that time. I still have a Facebook account, but I don't use it. I haven't posted or interacted with it in 3-4 years. I don't remember. I don't know if people are trying to reach me there. I hope not. Neither of my examples here are the first time this happened. It wasn't the first time I encountered this type of scenario. So I had learned my lesson prior, and I probably had realized by these times that it's pretty much fruitless. And in both of those cases, I didn't really care. I suppose it would have mattered if I did care. They're memorable because they were dumb, and I didn't care. So I suspect my first experience with this may have been more a matter of realization on my part that I did violate some rules, but I cannot say exactly. So in other words, I may the first time have said, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to post that kind of stuff. But probably the second or third time you start to say, wait a minute, what is this? What kind of, no, not censorship, but it's still just kind of silly. It's like when you're the editor of your school newspaper or something, and the administration comes over and says, I know you're the editor, but not really. And there are only more guidelines. We have heard, especially with more and more people monetizing their online content creation, about terms of service changes, community guideline changes, and other policy updates. Or maybe we have heard disgruntled commentary about these changes and updates that always seem to be mysterious to those impacted by them. In other words, there are some new policies here at insert platform name, and I guess I can't say the word flarball anymore. That kind of stuff. So it's usually like feeling your way down a dark hallway, from what I've heard and seen from YouTubers and others, but also occasionally now and then, which I experience myself, the Nextdoor example. For example, it did not make sense at all. Why was I not able to refer to a completely relevant local news story, which I did not embellish? I think I said something like this is probably relevant to here. Yeah. Oh well. More often than one might hope, a recent change or update can catch someone off guard, and so their content, whatever they publish or put up for sale or whatever it is either taken down or hidden or shadow banned or downranked with a notification by email most of the time, and in the worst cases. Not the shadow banning and the downranking so much, but if they remove or hide your content, they might say, oh, you violated a policy or a guideline. Sometimes there's enough detail so you can make changes that might be needed. And often this is important if the thing, whatever it is part of a publisher, that's maybe you or me, publisher's business income stream. More and more often, though, the message received is vague, often linking to the full guideline or policy documents without some specific, like, you violated number 3. And the strong suggestion that the thing needs fixing or else. Knowing what to fix, or at least why the thing has been taken down or hidden, is more often now a matter of intuition or community discussion or just plain old deduction. Clarity seems to have been left out of the relationship between host companies and their symbiotic content creating publishers. And with the position many content creators and publishers find themselves in, let me fix a little. They basically need to do the work and find out how to get their thing back online to make their money or to maintain their connection to their audience or customers or whatever. And usually it's all of those things. Deal with it. That's part of the job. There are caveats to this. Sometimes there's a more helpful person or a rep. I think YouTube does this with their larger creators. I don't know what larger means, but we'll sometimes hear about, I called my person at YouTube and they helped me out. Sometimes there are some happy ending stories, but the stories in general are pointing away from that as being common. I think more often you end up just scratching your head and posting on Reddit or something. Why did this get taken down? My most recent personal anecdote has to do with my being a product reviewer for a reasonably large online website. We've all heard of it. Literally, we've all heard of it. Everyone, from A to Z. I suspect I am not supposed to talk about this, so I'm not going to get too detailed because there's probably some non-disparagement clause in my user agreement or something. But let us just, let's find out. I have reviewed about 80 items as I record this in the last 3 months since joining the reviewer program. And as of June 15th, there was, so this is the 19th today, there was an update to the community guidelines for reviews, for people writing reviews. My reviews up to this guideline change were accepted without issue, 100%, never had one kickback. Today, this morning, I got my first rejection notice with a link to the community guidelines document and no additional details, and a suggestion that I update my review to comply. Unfortunately, they deleted my pending review. So even though there was a link to edit my review, it pointed to a blank new review form to start over. So I did start over, actually. I submitted a support request, like, can I get the original text back? But then I figured, I don't really care that much. I just want to get my total review count up so I don't have to deal with this stuff. And I'll get to what that is in a moment. So I could edit it, or in this case, just rewrite it. I'm reasonably certain I know what the issue is or was, since I included a link to the product documentation on the product maker's website to refer to a bug in their product instructions. I actually misplaced the printed version that came in the box, so I found it online. I said, I'm assuming this matches the printed version. I don't have it to compare, but they had, this is wrong. What it had in there, this is wrong. I thought that would be useful. That's the only thing I violated. They also don't want you to put actual price quotes in there. So no external links, no price quotes. Those were new. How do I know that? Because I have done that in previous reviews, but no more. It's forbidden in the new guidelines. So this is my oversight in this case. So, okay, fine. Trying to provide useful information where external links are not allowed. Slap my wrist. remaining in the program requires that I submit reviews for a certain percentage of products I have received. It's 60%, if you're curious. I receive them for free, so I pick the products, I receive them. I need to have 80 as I'm recording this, I need to have 81 items reviewed. Guess what? I already crossed over 81, but I need to have 81 reviews to get in the good graces. I had fallen below 60%. So, and why not 100%? Because I do real reviews. I actually use the products. I actually compare. I check the documentation to make sure it's correct and things like that. I figure it's the very, very least I can do. I'd like to, I'm getting the product for free. I might as well actually review it. So sincerity counts sometimes. There's a need to jump through hoops like this to remain in the program, though. That's the carrot on the stick. Or is it the stick with the carrot? This is a tame compared to the scenarios some people run into. Total mysteries, but they cost them actual money. In my case, I'm just paused in being able to get new stuff to review until I catch up with my ratio. But it does highlight something behind these guideline and policy changes in general. So who are these for? They're for advertisers, of course. You know the saying, if you aren't paying, then you are the product. You know that saying, right? A platform like YouTube, for example, it's not the platform I'm a reviewer for, by the way, but they always get attention for this daily and seemingly with changes often. So, and people talk about the changes. So it's probably the most visible, literally and figuratively, take on this. They share advertising revenue with their content creators if you're in their sharing program. With YouTube acting as a publisher, which is important. So they are kind of responsible for the content. So they take down hate speech and whatnot, even if it's not being advertised on. So they're exercising control over that content, largely for the sake of keeping their advertisers happy, though, and to not violate various laws about hate speech and child safety and such. I'm not complaining about those, but the advertiser thing is a little bit tricky. In my example, the review thing, the community guidelines changes aim towards protecting their sellers of products, since external links or now prohibited price quoting, so both of those things were changed in the guidelines, can cast the specific product in a negative light, which is better done through the stars, 1 star, for example, and the commentary, the description of the review, or the content of the review, I guess, not reference prices and links to better products somewhere else, maybe, which is not what I was doing, but doesn't matter. Even if the links and reference prices add value for a potential buyer of the product or service based on such transparent reviews, nope, can't have it. This is arguably a milestone. This is arguably a milestone. Can I read? No, cannot. This is arguably a milestone along the path of what Cory Doctorow famously calls impoopification. Now, I've changed the spelling to keep it somewhat clean. You can probably figure out where poop would be replaced with a different word. Impoopification. I wrote M, but I think it's N. Is it? I think it is. I've referred to this many times in various episodes of various of my programs, so hopefully you're familiar. I think he was talking about TikTok when he first wrote about it, but you can search Cory Doctorow. He's famous, and he's prolific in poopification. But yeah, you can guess what the real name is. If you look up Enshi, let me check since we're here. Jeez. Do I have a browser open? Oh, I don't even have a browser open. Well, maybe we'll check some other time. I think it's Nshitification, or the nature of a product or service, often online, but this could be anywhere. It could apply to physical products or whatever else. Starts out customer focused, where people like you and me are the customer, moves toward advertiser focus, where you and me are most definitely the product, and maybe still a customer. We may actually be paying by purchasing things or purchasing things from advertisers. So we're still sort of a customer, but we're definitely the product. And then they move, this path moves all the way to platform or company focus. So Facebook, for example, or YouTube. Well, YouTube isn't totally there, but they're definitely leaning. But Facebook completely, they really are aimed specifically at making the most amount of money possible, and their advertisers don't even get good value from them anymore so much. It's all about the company. And Mr. Doctor has commented on this at length over the years. So not even the advertisers are their customers anymore. We're all just the product, and we're there to give money to the big company. The advertisers might even become competitors. Transparency and specificity give way to vague changes that ultimately benefit the platform company and their specific requirements, whatever it is, sometimes at the expense of, drumroll please, us. The important thing to remember when you depend on a third party for your business, or to store your photos or maintain connection with your friends and family, or more importantly, your customers, if you're actually making money from using these things, if your livelihood depends on the policy of some other thing, all the other things the population at large has grown to require from big tech companies, we all depend on them. So it's not like it's the new thing. So remember all those things. It's that among these is that you are paying for these, and the best interest of the companies behind these platforms always trump yours. So you are paying for them, whether financially or with your personal privacy or your personal data, buying habits, and interactions, and so everything. It's all valuable. Especially for a public company, fiduciary responsibility is to the shareholder, not to you, not to me, not even to the advertisers and partners, but to the shareholders first and always. They must always benefit from your decisions. If that is not the case, the people running the company can get fired unless you've been creative in how you construct your company. Zuck. Vendor lock-in is a critical component of the shareholder value proposition, where you and me are locked into using this vendor, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or whatever. And whether we are mere consumers or actually providing content to the platform, either way, you are certainly data, which is another revenue stream. It's a different kind of content. So you really need to stay on that platform as much and as often as possible. And they do what they can to make that happen. You can't leave Facebook. All of your friends are here. How are you going to stay in touch with your parents, your kids? Let's buy WhatsApp to make sure that they can't go somewhere else. And Instagram, and it's basically just acquiring your eyeballs and your attention and making sure they keep it. More generally, though, we should be asking whether the trade-off of not only what we do with our own words, pictures, videos, and connections, who we follow, who follows us, who we message, should be ours to own and control, but also of how others whom we interact with are able to control their stuff. Whether these trade-offs are worthwhile. For better or worse, the vast majority of people in the world will opt for the trade-off, handing over their personal autonomy for some utility, no matter how unbalanced these might be. I've told this story somewhere. I was speaking to the person who came up with the Mac tone when you boot up your Mac, and it would go bong. Hopefully that didn't get silenced. I truncate silence when I publish these. Keep the pauses out. But the bong noise when you'd boot up your Mac back in the old days. I don't even know if they still do it. Who cares? Mac. Bleh. But I was speaking to that person who had since moved into like strategic marketing or something. Should have stuck with musician. And we were talking about Google Maps, and he said, "Oh, there's no value in that." I said, "Are you kidding? Knowing where things are and how to make people get to them and where the people are when they're getting there and all kinds of," and that's absolutely true. Your location data is among the most valuable that is collected by everyone. So in exchange, and by the way, in order to use a mobile phone, the phone itself has to know where it is so it can connect to a cell site. So regardless of your GPS settings or location sharing, your device always knows where it is and can share that information with the carrier. It kind of has to. So that's always going to be published. It's really hard to get around that unless you used decentralized mesh networking, for example, Mesh Core. So yeah, so I said, you have no idea what you're talking about. And he was sure I was the clueless one, but come on, location. That's all that matters in the world now. It's not even about business real estate. It's about every single person on the planet being locatable at any moment. That is invaluable. So what are the possibilities into the future, especially when it comes to these mysterious violations? Like, all I want to do is publish a picture of what's going on the streets. Well, there's violence in that picture. You can't do it. You're not a registered news organization, for example. Luckily, the pendulum appears to be swinging, however, slowly back toward individual autonomy, a little bit anyway. Actually, general autonomy, perhaps, as more and more brands and companies are remembering that they have websites, which they pay to maintain. So why not use them? Which they can control. So why not use them? So why hand their brand to the likes of Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or any other? Find us on Instagram. I remember the first time I saw a Toyota paid commercial. I don't know if it was on television or maybe it was a billboard, but they paid for this advertising, and they said, visit us at facebook.com/Toyota. And I thought, how insane is this that you are sending your customers to someplace else? Like, hey, welcome to our Toyota dealer. Now, if you wouldn't mind crossing the street to the Honda dealer over there, and we can talk business. Ridiculous. So yeah, actually, people can do the same, right? You can have your own domain. You can have your own small business. You don't have to be Toyota. So you can do the same things. You can get your own website. You can build your own website. You can do it on, what is it? Squarespace, right? They do websites, Wix, a WordPress website even. WordPress is bad. Don't do that. But getting the word out can still be tricky. Like, how are people going to find you? They know what Toyota is. They don't know what Dan Hugo is, most definitely. So using these available platforms, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever, and Facebook or whatever else, not as your primary point of publication. I don't post original content there, but as vectors pointing back to your own brand and web presence that will always make more sense. That way, if you ever get canceled, people have already been visiting your website, so they don't need to find you. Now, so this will not be universally true, but I know people have gotten, I don't know them personally, but they've gotten completely removed, their accounts deleted from YouTube. Oh, what am I going to do with my 1 million subscribers? Every single one of those subscribers should have been receiving an email from a mailing list from you, or there should have been a well-known link that they would bookmark. The Patreon alternative, or the like parallel, less constrained publishing model. Oh, visit us on Patreon to view the full whatever, is sort of, it's like a fail-safe, but it's still somebody else owns your connections with their customers, your clients, or your viewers, your audience. So basically, take that back. Make sure people are discovering you, but also coming to where your business is or where your presence is. Take control of those engagements. They should be able to talk directly to you, not through some third party. LinkedIn is an amazing violator of this premise. If you post a link back to your own website or your own blog or whatever, they demote it in their algorithm because they really want people to post their articles and their other ideas and photos and whatnot natively directly on LinkedIn. So if you post links to your stuff rather than the stuff, you won't get seen by as many people. And they really want you to use their direct messaging. Don't email when you can use LinkedIn DMs and so on. So they want to insert themselves into your life and your business arrangements and discussions and so on. And those can all be taken away if you are suddenly removed from the platform from whatever, or if the platform goes down, or if you are locked out of your account, or you get hacked, as they say. So there's always some reason to have these direct connections. Have your email address book up to date with the people you want to stay in touch with. Don't depend on WhatsApp or TikTok. Decentralization and federation are becoming popular again, which is good, with terms and policies that might be more to your liking, or at least options. Like if you don't like one platform, you can follow the terms and the guidelines and policies of the platform you do like and still interoperate with others. How the interface of that works, like policy mismatch, will be something of a discussion into the near term, but it will work out somehow. These are still platforms, but the good news is that you can probably host your own if you can't find one to your liking, especially if you lean into the ActivityPub Fediverse, like PixelFed and Lemmy, and Mastodon is probably the most well-known. And there are others, so all these platforms can interoperate in different ways. It's not just photos or a Twitter-like experience. These are all different types of experiences that can all work together and collaborate as far as following people and tagging and responding and replying, all that stuff. So It becomes much more about what you want to do, not what you are allowed to do. So ActivityPub is the one I prefer. There's the Fediverse is a big sort of an umbrella term. Some people like AT Proto. That's what Blue Sky is, and that's catching on a bit more slowly, although there's more money behind it. But definitely it's something to look into, or it's probably worth your consideration. It's an option to consideration. With hungry AI platforms wandering around the web, sucking up every word, picture, sound, and video it can find, probably without asking first, and certainly without giving you credit, publishing your own way on your own platform might be your only real defense against third-party and fourth-party robots and scrapers and whatnot, making off with your intellectual property or your memories or ideas, if you prefer, and integrating them into some training model where they'll reappear in some picture or video or generated text or whatever. Who knows? Like, that looks exactly like, probably. While the best way to keep a secret is to tell no one else, as soon as a second person knows, it's not really a secret anymore. Keeping your stuff yours and also sharing these with others will only become more challenging if you would rather not have wealthy big company types and their shareholders making bank off of you, as they always seem to anyway. So I guess maybe it doesn't matter. But either way, the review thing, as I said, I already rewrote the review from memory because I just posted it yesterday, the day before. I remembered the problems. So I re-jotted them down without referring to the external documentation. So, okay, fine. But sites like Facebook and Nextdoor, those were easy. I don't need those. Sites like Twitter, not really interested in the way that's going. So Blue Sky, not amazing. Mastodon, I have 4 different Mastodon accounts on different platforms, not to mention accounts for other entities and so on. So, personal versus our foundation, for example. So those are easy because if I don't like one platform, I can always export my contacts and whatnot and move to another. The Fediverse, decentralization, maintaining your own autonomy, if you like. These are words that sound subversive, but indeed, it's what the internet was designed for normal people for. Obviously it was originally founded to enable communication between Defense Department and research entities, DARPANet, ARPA, all that. But as far as normal people, even though they, capital T with scary quotes around it, they want you to give your money to corporate interests. But from a normal human point of view, this is about like sharing information and communicating and being creative and sharing that creativity with others and so on. And so while the powers that be may want to, I'm not trying to sound subversive here. I mean, this is just the origin story of the person internet was really about connection and communication, and it has turned into commercialization, which I don't think is as appealing. So I myself am hoping, and I'm suggesting that you consider moving to a model where you own more of your online presence as much as you can, and then share it with other places. If I could point a link on Blue Sky or even Twitter back to my own website, which I've been known to do, that to me makes more sense, because that website that I own and control within the boundaries of whatever's hosting it and what country I'm in and what country the person is in visiting it. There's so many rules, but at least I won't lose all of my content one day when somebody says, "Oh yeah, we had to cancel your account because you said something that is not in keeping with our updated terms of service or community guidelines." So it's an interesting time. I think we are revisiting this, especially now, as there have been some changes in the way certain norms and what we might consider protected speech and protected activities are being reimagined in some cases. So it'll be interesting to see if people will pay more attention to this and take actions as appropriate. And again, I'm not trying to be subversive. This is just a matter of, like, if you own a small business and you are depending on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, if you depend on these platforms and they suddenly decide for whatever reason, maybe that is not made clear to you, that you cannot use their platform anymore, that has material impact on your life. So it is worth considering, and it's worth also considering owning your presence and not depending on others to the extent that you're able to. If you have a fiber optic line into your home, and you can move away from the likes of Amazon or DigitalOcean or whatever, great. Eventually, we'll all be using Mesh-tastic radios to talk to each other on mesh networks, but that's farther down the road. So there you go. I'm going to bring it to a close for today. You can hear that my Vegas or Southern Nevada allergies are still in effect, which is really annoying. Usually it's April, May, not May, June, but we'll see what we can do about that. In the meantime, thank you for listening as always. And if you found this topic interesting, why not come on down and we can have a discussion. You may have your own ideas. And that's true of any of the episodes up until and including today. So think about it. That's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.